Imagine the German government spending 20% of the annual budget, or 336 billion, on redecorating a 1 square kilometer area of Berlin, paving parks, destroying squares and cultural heritage buildings, complicating the traffic, polluting the air. All of this by breaking, bypassing, and even changing legislature and disregarding popular will. Imagine a ruler impressed with Russian or Victorian architecture that wants to perform plastic surgery to turn Berlin into something that it is not and has never been. Imagine that, because that is what happened to Skopje within the past 6 years. Over 100 sculptures, 34 monuments, 27 buildings, 6 garages, 5 squares, 1 triumphal gate, numerous other urban interventions such as fountains, small squares and candelabra have been erected, whereas 12 parks and green corners have been ruined. Nearly 650 million euro have been spent in the last 7 years, with the annual amount reaching the average Macedonian healthcare budget. At the beginning, the project was supposed to cost 80 million euro, 8 times less than the price currently estimated through research of the publicly available documents. Almost all campaigns against the project have been met with counter-protests, media pressure campaigns and stigmatization, small-scale threats, even legal prosecution of the project's opponents. The government supported the project with a broad media campaign promoting Skopje 2014 with TV commercials, newspaper ads, documentaries and events, while most of the buildings were still in the phase of construction. Some construction projects have been rushed to meet certain dates and holidays in order to harvest populism points and enhance election campaigns. International media reporters were in shock, with some calling Skopje the world's capital of kitsch. The Prime Minister can be heard on leaked telephone tapes dating from 2013, conspiring violent mobs against the new mayor of a municipality in Skopje, elected on the program for preventing the further continuation of the construction of Skopje 2014. By December 2013, Skopje 2014 took its toll on more than a dozen parks, a few squares, pedestrian zones, riverbanks, and cycling paths. The total public green area in the center of Skopje has decreased by 50%, and the total canopy surface by 20%. The cut-down trees were mature and healthy, and thus more influential on the environment. The lost amount of public greenery is now irrecoverable. These changes put Skopje at the top of the lists of most polluted cities in Europe. In terms of costs, the project is ridiculously expensive. The average price paid for the new buildings is 2,000 euro per square meter, twice the market price and 4 times the construction cost for office buildings. Most of the construction work has been conducted by large construction companies owned by family and friends of the Prime Minister and party contributors. The Muslim and Ottoman heritage of Skopje has also fallen victim to this project. For instance, there are only a few monuments of Muslim historical figures or events. In addition, the once beautiful view of the 24 minarets from the Old Town, seen from the central square, is now thoroughly covered by a stretch of new buildings that have no real point in being there, but still make the city seem exclusively Christian. The most widely used argument promoting the Skopje 2014 project was that it would save the budget spent on rent by several Macedonian ministries and other public institutions that do not own real estate. However, when the return of the investment takes a century to reach, one might want to consider continuing paying rent. For the people of Skopje, the most irritating part of the process was the erasing of the collective memory and the annihilation of the cultural sites of Skopje. The city's first landmark, the Stone Bridge, has been surrounded by new, shiny bridges with sculptures and a Ferris wheel. The buildings from the modernist era all around the city have been facelifted with classicist facades. Buildings of dubious dimensions and shapes, colonnades and monuments create a wall along the river Vardar that obstructs the view of the modernist heritage represented through the Macedonian opera and ballet, as well as the view of the minarets of the Old Town. 2 unsuccessful referendum campaigns have been initiated by NGOs. The first in 2009 to prevent the construction of a church on the city square, and the second in 2015 to preserve the landmark architecture of the city trade center. The first referendum didn't reach its finale due to administrative blockades, but the church was moved away from the main square to a more distant location. The second managed to 97% of the votes in the city center, sending a clear message to the government that changing the essence of this public space is unacceptable. Unfortunately, only 47% of the voters turned up, and the 50% threshold wasn't met because of the boycott of the ruling party. Regardless of public will, the government may still ruin the concept of the much-beloved city trade center with a neoclassical design if it decides to be boorish like in the past. The two referendums have been the only participative democracy attempts to protect or regulate the urban commons, but they are only a partial cure to the problem. Skopje 2014 lingers in 2016. Construction sites are active despite the end of construction season. Monuments are erected and new ones are announced. The city is growing with the new buildings, and so far it seems that the only way to stop it is democratic change.